We're now going to wrap up the material attributes by talking about the self-shadow and geometry shadow attributes. Now, I've actually opened up a new scene, which is Lesson 16, Material Properties, and you'll notice that there's an extra piece of geometry here called the headband, and I'll show you that. You don't have to have this file open. You can use a sphere or whatever you want to block the light from the light that we're about to put in here. But let's go ahead and, first of all, render out a file so we have something to compare to. All right, and I'm going to store this image, and this is a render with just the default light that is inside of the shave render buffer. So let's go up here and let's create a new spotlight. And you can use spot directional lights. I would be careful of point lights, very intensive when you're working with them because of the shadow maps it's going to have to create. So let's go ahead and pull our light back here like this. Okay. And we'll go back to perspective, and I haven't changed any attributes, okay? But watch what happens now when I render this. And I'm actually going to hit the render button. I'm not going to pause the video. That way you can actually see what happens. Keep your eye out for the geometry itself. You'll see the geometry, then you'll see the dark spot on the geometry, which will be the shadow caused by the hair itself, and then you'll see the hair come in. So here's that shadow on the hair, on the body, and then now if you look, this is much darker than this. Well, the settings were already there. It just didn't have a light to calculate those settings for. So let's save this image and talk about this for a second. So once it found a light in the scene, it automatically took advantage of these attributes here. So self-shadowing, that's exactly what it says. This controls the shadows that each of the hairs place on the hairs next to it. And then the geometry shadowing is the geometry that may occlude these hairs and the shadows that are caused by that. So first of all, let me set both of these to 0 and re-render this frame. And now we are getting close to back to where we started. So if you look right here, this is how we started. And then this was just adding a light. And this is without any self-shadowing or geometry shadowing. Now, what do we got going on here? Well, we do see some shadowing, and that is from the actual hair node applied the shadowing to the geometry itself. So that is going on. Okay, so let me unhide this headband. Okay, let me just Shift H to unhide that. There we go. And on this attribute, let me turn up geometry shadow. Okay, so I'll set this all the way to 1 and let's render this. All right, so as you can see here from this view over, we're starting to get a little bit of shadowing right in here. And that's because this geometry is in the way. Now again, if you don't have this file open, you can just create a sphere right here and you'll see the shadowing take place. Now, we still don't have any shadowing individually on these hairs, but we do have shadowing caused by this geometry. Okay, so we can increase the self-shadowing. Now 1 is really too strong, so let's just try something like 0.8. Okay, and even 1 for this geometry shadow is too strong, so let's render this. All right, so now we're really starting to get some variation here. That's still a little strong for me, so I'm going to actually drop all these down to 0.6, 0.6, and as you notice, the specularity got dull. Okay, so we lost a lot of that specularity that we had built in. So I'm going to increase that to 0.6 as well. So let me pull this back a little bit, pull my camera back, and let's see what this looks like. All right, so now we're starting to get some nice highlight here, some nice self-shadowing as well as the geometry shadowing. Maybe the geometry shadowing could be a little bit stronger, but after this lesson, I'm going to hide that headband that was just there as a quick example of geometry shadowing. So as you can tell, once you add a light, you're going to see some different looks. Now, why would you need this before or after? Well, I find, as well as people here at Digital Tutors find, that working with shave and haircut without a default light or without an actual light in your scene is really easy at the beginning because you don't have the calculation time of these self-shadows and the geometry shadows. Instead, you can focus really on the color of the hair. And once you're happy with it, then you can start adding a light and then tweaking the shadows and specular values. So hopefully that'll give you a quick intro to a workflow. Let me actually hide this. That's kind of bugging me. There we go. That'll give you a quick intro to the material properties. Next, we'll spend a second to talk about some of the material attribute maps.